Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Paris Air Lab. Here you are in the temple of innovation when it comes to air transport. On display, you can find all the innovations that will create tomorrow's air transport. You have sustainable fuels right there. You have turbofans at the rear, hydrogen-powered propulsion systems, the lightest airplane seats. You can find them right there. And one of the most innovative companies in France and in the world in that sector is, of course, Thales. Thales is this French multinational company that designs, develops, and manufactures electrical systems for the airspace, defense, transportation, and security sectors. And we are thrilled to have its Executive Vice President Avionics on board with us this morning. She has been the head of 8 different companies. Please warmly welcome Yannick Assouad.
Good morning to everyone. I am going to talk about the climate impact of aviation and how at Thales we contribute to reduce it. The climate impact of aviation comes from the combustion of kerosene in the engine. This combustion generates 3 types of effects: direct conversion into CO2, secondly, conversion in nitrogen oxide, and thirdly, and it's not as known, the generation of condensation trail or contrail, the very brief but intense effects of which we are beginning to understand. And Nicolas Belloin, after me, will speak about it at length. Part of the transition to sustainable aviation is driven, of course, by the sustainable aviation fuel and, of course, low emission airplane. But it will take time to really be widespread around the world. There are 2 other levers that we can use that are more immediate. First, the renewal of the fleet. The fleet on average is 20 years old and with much more older airplane on Earth, and replacing them right away will gain 15 to 20% of CO2 emission. The other lever we can use is flight operation optimization. According to the projection we have, this could reduce the CO2 direct effects by 10% when all the tools that are necessary to do that will be deployed. And it will also contribute to greatly reduce non-CO2 effects such as contrail. And scientists explain that it could be reduced by as much as 50%. So the challenge of green operation is to enable each flight to be the most optimal flight, meaning direct flight, continuous ascent, flying at the correct altitude, which is using the most tailwind possible and avoiding the altitude at which the conditions are there to create contrails, and then having continuous descent. Altogether, we estimate that the 2 effects, limitation of contrail and limitation of CO2, could reduce up to 10 to 15% the global warming due to civil aviation. The first thing that we need to do is actually rather easy. It takes the airline and the pilot to deploy what Air France calls eco-flying, which is to say taxiing only with one engine, making more continuous ascent and descent, using the wings, so that especially on transoceanic flight, and flying with the most optimum engine regime, to have constant descent as well. This takes the air navigation provider to accept that, and today indeed it's not easy because they don't have the tool to do it. The second step we could do is really provide those people with the correct tool to ease their job every day. On aircraft, they have an onboard system which is called the flight management system, such as Thales Pure Flight. And as you know, the FMS, flight management system, is really the brain of the airplane. This is a system that allows a pilot to plan his route. And you can provide tool to allow him to calculate the most optimum route and then put it directly in its flight management. On the other hand, the air traffic management also needs to have tools because they have not only to deal with one airplane, but several airplanes in their airspace of responsibility, and they need to have tools to help accept the most optimal flight for each flight. So this means collaboration between the two. And today, the FMS is a closed system, does not speak to the air traffic management system, except through the voice of the pilot on one side and to the controller on the other side. So it's not a very efficient system in terms of collaboration. So again, we need to connect the airplane to the ground so that direct message can be sent from the airplane to the flight control on ground, and automatic acceptation of change of the flights. So the last action that we can do to optimize in-flight operation is to use very disruptive operational concept, which is formation flying. The approach is, of course, inspired by migratory birds and the fact that they fly in a V shape to save energy. The same can be done with airplane that enjoys then the benefit of weak vortex to really fly and use less fuel. Now, how is Thales involved? I'm going to be a little more specific. We have the Pure Flight FMS, which provide a first key item because contrary to current flight management control system, they include an open side with which you can communicate and a very secured environment which controls the airplane. In between the two, you have a safe cyber-secure gateway that will allow the two to communicate. So what do we need to provide the pilot for it to optimize the airplane? We have developed a tool which is called Flight Footprint, which computes for any flight between 2 points, taking into account real-time data like the meteorological data and the flight control situation, which will compute the most optimal flight. With that, not only from the CO2 direct impact, but from the non-CO2 impact. From there, it will compute based with AI the most optimum flight and put it directly in the FMS. On the other side, we are developing what we call green flight, which is a bit of the same thing for the controller. It has its ATM system, and then we have developed green flight, which shows. I'm sorry, I guess I need to stop because our French Prime Minister is about to come to the Paris airline. So, sorry, she's a bit in advance, so we have to adapt.
She's ahead of time. Thanks very much, Yannick Assouad. Sorry for having to interrupt you. We understand that Thales is really committed to enhancing decarbonization in the air transport. Thanks very much, Yannick Assouad.